Luo Feng like lightning cracking open a night sky with no warning. This technique could turn his body into a miniature universe, and if he chose, it could self-detonate with devastation resembling cosmic collapse itself. But hello friends, welcome back to 3D Cartoon Review, where we retell cultivation legends in a fresh cinematic voice, built for storytelling and commentary. Today, we step into Swallowed Star, episode 210, where 50,000 years of solitude becomes one thunderous breakthrough that shakes the stars. Before we begin, drop a comment for me. If your destiny demanded 50,000 years alone, would you still chase it without hesitation? Because in this episode, Luo Feng proves something terrifying: true patience is not weakness, but a weapon sharpened in silence. And when the universe finally answers him, it answers so loudly that even the greatest human guardian cannot hide his shock. After the events of the previous chapter, Luo Feng already possessed the fearsome Yu Hai clone and began cultivating the Juji Median immediately. He didn't waste time celebrating, because he understood that celebration invites attention, and attention invites hunters with long memories and sharp blades. So he sealed himself away, turned inward, and let time grind forward like a slow millstone, pressing his foundation into something impossibly dense. Inside that endless quiet, the Yu Hai clone began transforming from a powerful tool into a monstrous existence that could change Luo Feng's entire future. The life gene level surged step by step, rising from 300 times to 900, then 1,800, then 7,200. Each leap felt like an invisible law snapping into place, like the universe itself being forced to accept new rules written into Luo Feng's blood. Finally, it stabilized at the shocking number 10,081 times, a scale that no ordinary life form could even imagine reaching. At that moment, the Yu Hai body stood nearly 90,000 kilometers tall, like a jade continent stitched with faint, blood-red threads of light. And then, as if fate decided to reward him with something even more dangerous than raw power, a new innate secret art awakened within him. Its name was Wei Wo Yu Zhou, and the meaning struck Luo Feng like lightning cracking open a night sky with no warning. This technique could turn his body into a miniature universe, and if he chose, it could self-detonate with devastation resembling cosmic collapse itself. But power like that does not come with kindness, and its cost was savage, burning divine power like feeding suns into a hungry abyss. So Luo Feng did what he always does when the universe presents a brutal equation. He engineered a solution that felt almost cold-blooded in its precision. He linked Wei Wo Yu Zhou with the Yu Hai talent Hua Hai, planning to replenish what the technique consumed by returning to ocean form. In other words, he was building a terrifying cycle: spend divine power, become a universe, survive, then refill endlessly through the sea's regeneration. Pause here and comment honestly, would you prefer one ultimate technique that drains everything, or a technique you can sustain forever in battle? With a final thought, the towering Yu Hai clone dissolved, collapsing into a primordial blood sea nearly 1 million kilometers wide. Space around it trembled faintly, as if reality itself adjusted its posture, recognizing the birth of something that could someday become a forbidden domain. Then Luo Feng activated Chuangzhao, creating a new clone, smaller, safer, and deliberately weaker, so he could repeat growth without losing control. The newborn clone devoured energy with terrifying speed, then merged back into the sea. He repeated the cycle again and again, like a craftsman forging a blade through endless folding, each merge making the steel harder and more lethal. Every expansion was silent, but the feeling was heavy, like a storm building in the deep ocean, where no light reaches and no prayers are heard. To fuel this madness, Luo Feng didn't spend wealth the way normal cultivators do. He burned it, purchasing energy crystals without hesitation. He understood one brutal truth: resources saved for tomorrow become meaningless if you do not survive today. Soon the blood sea surged beyond tens of millions of kilometers, and Luo Feng felt his inner world begin to strain under the pressure. It was like forcing an ocean into a cup, and even his internal space started to feel cramped beneath the weight of his ambition. So Luo Feng turned to the Jinjiao Jusho swallowing talent, devouring scraps, fragments, and metal essence to expand his inner world relentlessly, because long ago his inner core stone had evolved in a strange way, and that abnormal potential now became the foundation of something unprecedented. In the end, Luo Feng's inner world expanded to a diameter of 10,000 yi kilometers, shattering the usual limit of 100 million kilometers. Even within the Golden Horn beast lineage, such a scale had never been recorded, and that impossible distance became Luo Feng's silent advantage. Deep within that vast inner world, the Golden Horn World Stone absorbed immense metal essence and underwent a unique special evolution. Luo Feng sensed faintly that this stone's quality had become singular, like a rare key that might one day decide survival when legends collide. With conditions so perfect, Luo Feng stepped toward the threshold of Immortal, believing his foundation had finally reached the level needed to break through. He gathered origin power and struck at the yuan he again and again, forcing cracks to appear for a heartbeat before healing instantly. The wall mocked him without words, erasing damage as if pain itself was unacceptable, as if his attacks were nothing but meaningless scratches. He attempted more than 10 times, and each failure left the same message carved into his pride: brute force would not open this gate. Luo Feng understood then that he needed refinement, not rage, and a fully completed self-created art, not more stubborn strikes into a laughing wall. Under the guidance of Hun Dun Cheng Zhu, he tried pushing the third move of his supreme art forward within the virtual universe. But the more he forced it, the more blocked he became, as if his own obsession tangled the breath of his technique into knots. Finally, he recognized the real problem: his heart was too sharp, his mind too tight, and his spirit could not flow like a true starry river. So Luo Feng made a decision that looked like retreat, but was actually wisdom sharper than any blade. He stepped away from seclusion and began a long wandering through the universe, letting time and distance polish his spirit into calmness. He drifted for 50,000 years, crossing silver planets, watching dying suns, listening to black holes, and learning to breathe with endless silence. Over ages, his temperament changed from a blade obsessed with victory into a presence that could wait without fear, without impatience, without desperation. Then one day, Luo Feng witnessed a scene that pierced him deeper than battle, because it reminded him of Earth's ancient sacrifices. He encountered the Taike clan facing disaster, and a young genius named Mo Na chose sacrifice to protect his people's retreat. In front of them stood an immortal divine spirit named Wu Tuo Wa, arrogant and overwhelming, like a storm convinced it owned the sky. Mo Na was weak, yet his eyes were unbroken, and that stubborn courage dragged Luo Feng back to the days Earth stood on the edge of extinction. Luo Feng remembered the terror of the Golden Horn beast, remembered elders who faced death without flinching, remembered courage as the final weapon. In that emotional instant, Luo Feng casually slashed his saber, and the blade light fell like silk rain across the starry void. In a blink, the invading immortal forces were buried, erased as if the universe itself had closed its fist without negotiation. Saving them was only a passing intention, but that moment completed something deeper. His understanding finally began flowing naturally afterward. The wandering, the silence, the starlight, and that single decisive slash linked together like scattered pieces snapping into one complete map. When Luo Feng returned to cultivation, the final piece of his supreme art clicked into place without resistance, like destiny exhaling at last. He completed one Engxing Budao 2 at peak level, and the 3 moves became a terrifying constellation of death and precision. If you love technique breakthroughs, comment star art, because episode 210 is the moment Luo Feng forges a blade out of the cosmos itself. The first move was Dian Ben Xing, where starlight spread like a silk curtain, sharp enough to cut arrogance and armor together. The second move was Ru Ri Xing, where a rainbow became a saber, tearing night open so fast that fear arrived too late. The third move was Xing Hu Guan Tian, where sparks filled heaven, and jade and stone shattered together, leaving only silence behind. Inside his palace, Luo Feng controlled 16,000 star orbs, condensing them into a divine beast formation, humming with lethal beauty. He raised his hand calmly, the calm of someone who had waited 50,000 years for one breath, then released the final strike. He declared, "Sing Huo Guan Tian, let heaven crack and earth split like jade and stone shattering together." A violent roar answered him, and the barrier of the yuan he shattered, finally breaking the cage that had mocked him for so long. Instantly, an ocean of metal laws descended, and a divine power waterfall poured down like judgment from the heavens. The Blood Sea, once 10 billion kilometers of world energy, transformed into immortal divine power, rolling endlessly like an undying tide. The commotion was so extreme that even Hun Dun Cheng Zhu could not hide his shock at the pressure erupting from Luo Feng's breakthrough. Hun Dun Cheng Zhu exclaimed, "Has his breakthrough pressure surpassed even the pressure of stepping into Universe Venerable?" In that moment, anyone who understood cultivation would feel their scalp tighten, because this was no longer strong, this was unreasonable. Luo Feng stood inside the storm and answered with confidence earned through suffering, not borrowed from reputation or luck. He declared, "My endless Yu-Hai divine power is higher in quality than a Universe Venerable's, and greater in quantity by countless trillions." Those words were not decoration, they were a measurement. A statement that his foundation had crossed into a territory that felt impossible. Yet Luo Feng did not rush into celebration, because curiosity rose and he turned toward the legendary Xingchen the Star Tower. He poured a horrifying amount of divine power into it, and the Star Tower, towering on a 9-light-year scale, only trembled slightly. Luo Feng sighed, because that tiny movement carried a lesson sharper than praise, reminding him that some mountains cannot be moved by impatience. He whispered, "It's far too difficult to move." That moment echoed Zuo Shankei's warning. Before reaching Universe Venerable, dreaming of fully controlling Xingchen Ta was arrogance. So Luo Feng left the Star Tower behind and entered deeper layers of spatial cracks, searching for the right foundation to establish his Shenguo. He selected a massive spatial fragment with a diameter of 62,000 Yi kilometers, then fused and refined it with patient precision. When the process completed, a majestic divine kingdom was born, and the endless Yu-Hai became its eternal power source beneath the sky. It felt like a private cosmos, and Luo Feng's presence inside it carried the weight of a rising ruler who had finally stepped onto a greater stage. Then Luo Feng returned to Lei Tingdao, and Hun Dun Cheng Zhu made an exception that sent shockwaves through the highest circles. He allowed Luo Feng to build a palace on the mountainside zone reserved for Universe Venerables, granting a fresh immortal a forbidden honor. As expected, dissatisfaction spread among experts who believed hierarchy was sacred and privileges should never be gifted to newcomers. Lei Mingzunjie criticized publicly, his words sharp enough to slice reputation, voicing what many powerful beings were thinking. Lei Mingzunjie said, "He is only an immortal. How can this make us Universe Venerables truly accept it?" Pause and comment your answer. If you were a Universe Venerable, would you tolerate a newcomer standing beside you, or demand proof through battle? Because in this universe, proof rarely arrives politely, and it rarely arrives privately. Proof arrives under 1,000 eyes, like a blade drawn in daylight, forcing every breath to feel heavy. And proof arrived quickly, right in the open, on the plaza where inheritances and reputations collide. The special life existence, Shi Jingwang, whose combat strength rivaled Universe Venerables, appeared openly and locked his stare onto Luo Feng. In front of tens of thousands, Shi Jingwang issued a public provocation, turning the air razor thin, turning the crowd into silent witnesses. He shouted, "Fight a life and death battle with me, Dao Wei Wang. Do you dare? No excuses? Just tell me, do you dare?" The plaza froze, because refusing meant reputation collapse, yet accepting meant risking death against a terrifying special life form with an overwhelming advantage. Millions of inheritors stared, understanding the trap. One answer ruins dignity, the other answer invites a storm that cannot be stopped. Under those countless eyes, Luo Feng stood, his gaze sweeping the crowd like cold lightning crossing a stormy horizon. He did not hesitate, because a man who survived 50,000 years of wandering does not fear one loud mouth in a crowded square. Luo Feng answered with a single line that detonated across the plaza, splitting silence under the weight of absolute confidence. He said, "Since you are rushing to meet the King of Death, how could I refuse you the chance?" At the same level, I, Luo Feng, never refuse a fierce battle. The crowd erupted instantly because that was not a reply. It was a door being kicked open, inviting destiny to step inside. From afar, Zhu Chongwang and Ziyu Zunjie watched, shaking their heads, judging Luo Feng as reckless, perhaps even arrogant. Shi Jingwang laughed loudly, tasting the moment like sweet poison, then named the time and place for the decisive battle. News of the life and death duel spread through countless races like a storm because everyone sensed the coming clash would shake alliances and reputations. And just like that, episode 210 ends not with peace, but with a blade hanging above the universe, waiting to fall. So answer me in the comments. Do you believe Luo Feng's endless Yuhai Foundation can suppress Shi Jingwang's special life pride in equal level combat? And that's Swallowed Star, episode 210, where a single breakthrough shakes the heavens. But the real danger begins after the applause. Luo Feng has stepped into Immortal, established his divine kingdom, and accepted a public challenge that cannot be taken back. Now the question is not whether he can grow, but whether he can survive the moment the universe turns his name into a target. If you enjoyed this original cinematic retelling, hit like and subscribe, because episode 211 turns this challenge into a storm of blood and pride. Thank you for watching 3D Cartoon Review, and I'll see you next time under a sky of burning stars and falling destinies.